Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for Film Fanatic Show. It is Sunday at about 9:30. It's 9:37. Hope everyone's doing good and survived. This morning I was looking at some photos from the floods from the storm that we had on Saturday, yesterday, and I mean, here where I live here in Northport, I'm obviously close, right on the ocean, but where Route One is, we sit pretty highly elevated, so we don't really see the flooding. But man, I saw some photos this morning of Camden and a couple other areas that were literally underwater, and it's like I feel terrible for those people. It's scary. It's a scary thing, and it seems to be, you know, a reoccurring thing, like every I don't know, few weeks at this point, and it's so bizarre. But it's in the middle of winter too. But anyway, on a good note, or good and a positive thing to talk about. Last night we played a Quantum show at Hey Sailor, which is there's a lot of great places to see music here in Mid Coast Maine. There's a lot of great restaurants. It's an awesome area. The only and I've said before, without going too much into it, but the only thing I don't that sometimes drives me crazy about living here in Maine is the seasons. You know, with winter, winter can be pretty hard, uh, and it feels like eternity. But there are things about it I like. But that's the only real aspect of living here that I don't really like at times. But I love living close to the ocean. I do like experiencing all the different seasons, and we are very lucky with lots of cool venues, or great places to eat, and all those kinds of things. But I have to say, at the end of the day, right now, Hey Sailor, which is in Searsport, is my. I think it's the best venue around. I think it's hands down the best venue all around. Um, I haven't been down to Portland in a while, but used to play there. Well, back quite a few years ago, I used to play there quite a bit, and the last couple of years I've been down there. I was always playing like a monthly or bi-monthly gig at Blue, and which is a cool place, but it's changed quite a bit. But I have to say, here in Mid Coast Maine, um, Hair Sailor is the best place around because it feels like a venue. It feels like when you go there, and again, just even from a perspective of being a fan of music, it feels like you're going to an event, or it feels like you're going to see an actual concert, as opposed to because as opposed to like a secondary thing, because most things around here are treated that way as far as music, which is and they do the best they can, but there isn't really a venue, and so very very cool. But we played there last night with Quantum, had a super fun time. I really love playing there. Hope we can keep playing some more shows there at some point, but really love that place. So thanks again to some of the folks that came out, and all that good stuff. So it was a blast. So today's show is on a continuation. I haven't done it in a few days, or about a week, but today's show I've been doing coverage, or doing videos on the entire Purge franchise. The Purge is my Purge is my favorite, like, modern day um, franchise. There's some great ones. Obviously, Friday 13th is my all time favorite, and I did a big show on that last year. Last year, I believe. And the Godfather series is pretty good. The first two being just masterpieces, but Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I did a coverage of the some of the Alien franchise movies. Well, mostly really just the first two, but it's pretty hit or miss with a lot of franchises. But I feel like Purge is, as far as more modern day franchises, I feel like it's the most consistent, and it's rare because I also feel, in an interesting, slightly weird way, I almost think each movie in the franchise actually gets better. They, I don't know, I don't really know what that is. I think what it is I feel like the stakes in each movie get raised, so there's like more tension in each movie, and things just kind of become. You get a sense that things are kind of put in this more of a grand scale size of things. You know, there's more to lose. There's more at risk, and they do each movie does obviously introduce more characters to the story, but I don't know, they do a great job with defining what the story is about, pushing it forward, giving you something new, and also doing a really good job with, showcasing these various characters. Very, very cool. Um, I don't own the entire. The only two movies I own is the very first Purge movie with Ethan Hawke, which is a masterpiece, and I recently bought Election Day, and I did a show on that on Blu-ray. And when I just bought that, I think maybe a week or two ago, I was at Goodwill. It was probably 2 weeks or 2 3 weeks ago now. I was at Goodwill in Rockland, and I snagged it up. So that inspired me to want to do this whole series, and so because it's been something I've been wanting to do for a while. But after seeing that movie, getting it on Blu-ray and watching it, I totally uh, love that movie. And then that also spurred on. I started watching. Before I watched Election Day, I watched the very first Purge, which is great. It's an awesome movie and very, very cool. It's super violent. It might. I mean, all the Purge movies are very violent. I almost think the first one might be the most violent, but it's really great. It's a very different film from the rest of them because the rest of the films in the franchise, you get a sense of kind of the society of the time, and they show, these scenes of where there are, the purge is happening in on a big scale, like in the city and towns. The very first Purge movie takes place really in one central location, and that is in one person's house, Ethan Hawke's house, and it's really great, really effective. It's very claustrophobic too. But I love how they expanded the universe and the locations for the Purge movies, where you just get a bigger sense of the ramifications of something that is happening that is really so horrific. So today's show is on, which is the fourth installment of the Purge franchise. This is the fourth movie I will be covering, and this one is called The First Purge, and this came out in 2018. And this movie is really definitely the very definition of a prequel, very much a prequel. The storyline of this film is basically, I mean, when you come into this franchise, the very first Purge, they do a really great job of explaining the scenario and the kind of the social situations going on. And that movie takes place after the Purge has been enacted by the powers that be, and it's been going on for a few years, and so it's become this annual thing. This movie, The Purge, the first Purge, is about the very, very first um, Purge situation that actually occurred when the founding fathers, the powers that be, when they first passed this law or legislation, and this movie's about the very first Purge. Um, I've only seen this movie one time, but it is. I remember it being super fantastic. It was directed by Gerard Mercury, and again, it really does a great job with explaining and showing how something so horrible happened and kind of the ramifications of it. And it really shows the tiny little beginning, the little seeds that planted this something that eventually grew into something so horrible. And then fast forward, getting to the last movie, it shows uh, the already out of control situation growing even more out of control, and which is called, the very last film after this movie is called the Forever Purge, where it basically tackles the idea, or the situation of where it becomes where it's not a yearly thing anymore, and it just evolves to where this society and the laws, everything has crumbled. But this movie, again, the first Purge, is really great. I've only seen it once, but I remember it being really, really great as far as showing, kind of this social unrest that was going on, where the president and then the government, at the time of when the Purge became enacted into law and passed legislation, the crime level, uh, violent crimes, rape, all kinds of robberies, all of those at the time, the statistics and in the reality that people were dealing with, crime was at its like all time ultimate high. Things, for all intents and purposes, were out of control, and so there was a sense of desperation of how to try to somehow bring this crime rate down to some capacity. And things got so insane that this eventually became um, a possibility of where the government would pass this new law where people would be allowed, where they would suspend the law for 24 hours and people could basically go out and commit any violent crime that they wished. And the idea was that they could purge themselves of this, these beastly desires. Complete, and as insane as that is, and this film shows the whole insanity of, the rationality that this could be an actual alternative, when the solution could have been looking at class warfare, and it goes into the amount of scapegoating that was going on as far as targeting minorities and targeting people in uh, in areas of where they didn't really have any positions of power, and they all tended to be of low income, the low income class. So these people all became the targets of the reason as to why all of these things were happening. And it became this essentially rich versus poor class warfare problem. And their solution, the government solution, was to create this thing of where people could get it out of their system. And this film really does a great job of showing the kind of the social unrest, that led to something that's this dystopian nightmare. Fantastic movie. Again, I've only seen it once. I saw it. I rented it when it came out on DVD, and it is an awesome movie. I remember it being really great. I do want to buy it. I do want to buy the rest of the films on Blu-ray. They're fantastic. Again, it's my favorite franchise. Um, the only Purge movie I got to see in the theater was Election Year with Frank Grillo, and I'm a huge Frank Grillo fan. So he's in a few of these movies. Just an awesome action star, great presence, great screen presence. He's also got, he's got dramatic chops. I think he's good at playing dramatic roles, but he can be very funny. He can do comedy, I think, and obviously he's very physical. Does a lot of his own stunt work. He's kind of a beast. He's a expert boxer and he does practice martial arts. He does a lot of his own stunt work and he's just ripped but he's great. I really love him as an actor. He's one of those guys that can be in a movie that is not very good, but he can still be great in it. So yeah, can't say enough about this franchise, and I definitely say the other thing that's really cool about this franchise is I wouldn't say you have to watch all of these movies in order per se. It's interesting because I feel obviously it helps if you know the storyline, but I think each movie does a really good job where it does a great backstory or introduction. When you're going into one of these movies and you get a good sense of what's going on. Like when I saw Election Year in the theater, I had gone, and that came out quite a few years ago now, but I went to the theater with my girlfriend at the time, and she hadn't really seen any of the movies. I think she might have seen the first one, but I don't even think she did, and she definitely didn't see the other films, the second one, and Purge Anarchy. So, but she really loved it, and she really got into it, and that to me. That was when, after seeing the Election Year movie in the theater, that's when I realized, wow, like this is a really, really good franchise. Because not only are they great, dystopian, kind of violent, dark action movies, and they do a great job also with having some heavy raising and talking about some, serious societal issues that we're going through right now as a society that you could see some of these things happening, and you do see some of these things happening, but it doesn't do any of that service in a way of where it's heavy-handed or it's preachy. It has this great balance of those things, which is really great because I think a lot of the times when movies try to have quote unquote social commentary, or they want to like use their movie as a mirror to kind of reflect on what society is. It even though a lot of times I will probably agree with a lot of what that's about. It often it's preachy and heavy-handed, and it feels like it gets into this thing of preaching to the choir. And for me as a viewer, when it does that, it turns me the fuck off, and I'm not into the movie. And I'm like, even again, if it could be, tackling issues about war or, you know, the military-industrial complex, or the economics, or things that I totally agree with, or the how our election system is here, things that I totally agree with. But when it starts like telling me that I need to agree with this and saying where's its stance on its sleeve, I'm out. Even if I agree with it, I can't do it. The Purge movies are such an exception to that because they tackle all of those issues, and but again they do it in such a good way. They keep it pretty subjective, and you can be objective by watching them, where you can kind of make up your own opinion, and it doesn't matter what political party you're from or what your religious beliefs are or whatever, what have you. It can be it's pretty sound, I think, what they present as far as the social commentary. And I think generally most people can kind of agree, or at least think about these things, which is important. But it never says, you need to take this side, or you need to, vote this way. It's great. And again, it has that. All these movies have that, but at the end of the day, they're just kick-ass, action slash horror movies, and they're great. They're fun, even though very, very dark, very brutal. But I think these movies are very fun and just super fucking entertaining. So yeah, definitely check out. And again, they're all really good. I think they all act as really good standalone films. You can watch any of them cold. A couple of weeks ago, it hasn't really worked out because of our schedules, but I started watching the Game of Thrones series. And the intent that we had was with some friends. We were going to watch try to pick every Sunday and watch all of the Game of Thrones movies. But and we did watch most of the first season. But before we started the movie, we I got over there and we were kind of getting situated. I got over there and they had one of the Purge movies on, and the movie was the Forever Purge, which was the last one that came out a couple of years ago or last year, and we watched that. Uh, they were like, I don't know, 20 minutes into it, and we watched that before we watched Game of Thrones. And I had only seen that movie once, and I was like, this is awesome, this is great. And it was one of those things where it was on in the background, and we're sitting there talking and kind of making a plan as to what we're going to do exactly besides watching movies like getting takeout or whatever. And it was like, oh, then I noticed that they were watching the last Purge movie, and I was like, oh, cool. So I started watching it, and then 5 minutes into it, I was like totally into it. I forgot, and I ended up sitting on the table and or sitting down on the couch and just watched that, and I was like, yeah, this movie's awesome, and that's why I love these movies. So yeah, I was looking forward to doing the next. There's one more movie to review, and that is the Forever Purge, which is the one I just was talking about. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.